to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, you got on Ebro in the Morning. Laura Stiles is fault. Vic, we want to, I don't know if we should apologize, but just alert you that Laura Stiles fell asleep.
She's pregnant, though. She's moments away.
She's a few weeks away from bringing a child to upon the earth, and she was tired, so she didn't make the conversation today. But we have Vic Mensa, friend of the show. Yeah, she's getting it together
because
over here.
This is still an early hour.
But the V tape is
definitely
out.
Still an early hour.
The V tape is out. The first of 3 releases from Vic Mensa. Is that common knowledge that there will be an I tape and a C tape? Or am I spoiling it?
I haven't heard it said. I haven't heard it said before, but there is a lot of music to come. You know what I mean? And this is a part of something bigger.
So this V tape, you got Snow Allegra on here, our girl Erin Allen Kane, St. John, who's right here from New York City,
yep.
BJ Chicago Kid. I mean, you're talking about so many important things on every single one of these 7 songs on the V tape. The last piece of music we heard from you was a more rock-inspired, kind of punk-leaning rock-inspired. This is very hip-hop, which is your roots, getting to these bars. Tell us why you went head first back into this hip-hop space on this one.
Man, the whole project, that I'm working on is it's really like a return to form and a return to my roots in a lot of ways. And so I recorded the whole thing in Chicago, and I've been spending time with the people that I've known for 10, 15, 20 years, and the places that have known me for that long. You know what I'm saying? And so really just returning home, and I think the music reflects that.
You also, and I've had the pleasure of speaking to you since you traveled to, you went to Palestine, you went to Israel. I think you went out there with Erin Allen Kane at how long ago was that now? 2 years, 3 years ago?
It was a while ago now.
But I don't know.
That was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever actually talked on Hot 97 about that trip and about, the people you met there and what you learned.
No, we did, but we can do it again. We definitely did.
We did?
Yeah.
On Hot 97?
Yeah.
We
That's
did?
the only time me, you, and Vic all talked, the 3 of us. It was on Hot 97. We went in, for sure.
Oh, well, y'all need, if you're watching us right now, go back and watch that interview. It was amazing.
It affected you deeply, I can tell.
Well, no, because I talked to him also at Apple.
No, I know.
About it.
We've talked about it in real life, too.
I was confused on how many times I talked to him.
I was telling
about
somebody yesterday. I was telling my homegirl yesterday, actually, when I told her that I was going to be speaking to y'all, I was like, yeah, the last time that I went to go talk to them on Hot 97 in the morning, we really just talked about Palestine for like 30 minutes. And I was like, I was telling her, I was like, man, these are my guys, because it's like, that really takes bravery. It's like y'all two are pretty much the only people that I'm aware of, you know what I'm saying, that are in like visible media, you know what I'm saying, that will approach that subject like unabashedly and head on, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
now,
you too. You're one of the most outspoken artists who's talked about this honestly, and and it's affected your life. It's affected your relationships. It's been impactful, not only in a good way, but you've also, I'm sure, had some really tough situations and conversations as a result of it.
For sure. That's why we get along.
But the reason I'm bringing it up is specifically in this album, you have a song entitled Bethlehem. And then there's like and it's a SC freestyle where you throw on, kind of like the Where I'm From. Is it the Where I'm From beat from home? And you rhyming over that.
Unfair. But
I think more importantly about just how you address white supremacy all through this project. And I think, you going to Palestine and seeing the way darker-skinned people who are Palestinian and even darker-skinned Israelis and Africans who are also Jewish get treated by the regime there, which we have openly called a white supremacist regime on the air several times. I would love to hear from you, like looking at Chicago, looking at Palestine, looking at Black Americans, looking at you being of African descent, being Ghanaian, and having a white mom and existing in these, being of mixed racial background. I would love to hear from you articulate kind of what you've seen around the world with regard to white supremacy and how that affected the music that you're giving us on this V-tape.
Everywhere that I've ever been, white supremacy has been prevalent. From being in Palestine and some of the experiences that I had there, being in the old city of Jerusalem and watching the IDF soldiers beating up the young Palestinian kid on the wall, presumably for throwing stones or being in the possession of rocks, spending time and then watching a Jewish guy walk down the street with a yarmulke and an AK-47 and flip-flops and short shorts, like the white supremacy was mind-blowing. You know what I'm saying?
So similar to here, by the way, too. In terms
China.
of so similar to here, how you see at a protest, if you see a black man standing there with a gun,
sure.
what? And when the
sure.
cats were coming out to City Hall with their guns,
screaming at cops,
he gonna walk right away.
Yep.
That's that Kyle Rittenhouse. You know what I mean? He
exactly.
Gonna walk right away. And the parallels are definitely not lost on me. But being in Ghana and, seeing the way that white skin is revered across Africa. I mean, skin lightening creams are super popular, These are like top-notch popular products in Africa and West Africa and South Africa, you know what I'm saying? And even just kind of, I've been reading a lot of history recently. I've been reading this book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. One of my homies gave me on the Hotep side. But it's ill though, because it gives me a window into the way that white supremacy, within the last 500, 600 years has taken this super strong foothold to kind of erase a lot of Black achievement. And it makes sense to why we end up in this predicament, globally. Even just, this is something I speak about on that song Bethlehem too. I say, original man, they try to white out our history as if the first universities was an Egyptian. And if you watch Hollywood or you read history books in school, they'll have you think that the Egyptians were a white society and all of the accomplishments of the Egyptians bear no responsibility, that Blacks bear no responsibility for that. And, when you start to really do the history, you peep that Egyptian was initially, an African society, and that through invasions by Arabs, through invasions by white people, Islam comes in, eventually the races were mixed. But I think what's real interesting is that when modern day anthropologists and the experts look back on the situation of Egypt, they say, oh, well, it's historically inaccurate to categorize Egypt as white or Black. And I'm like, isn't that convenient when you've already categorized it as white? And now it's historically inaccurate, And it's like over here, I'm Black because I have half of my genes are African, but when they look at Egypt, they're going to say, because they're not 100% African, now they're no longer Black.
It's so, that
like,
is
come
so
on, guys.
true.
No,
we didn't like it.
Come on, guys.
No, we were cool with it being labeled one way or the other when it was the way we liked it. The other
right.
way, we think it's best that we not jump to any rash conclusions.
Vic, you've been very active also, not only now but in the past in Chicago with demonstrations. Trump, the president Trump has tried to use Chicago as kind of his little, beacon of, of the world needs to be fixed and only the Republicans can do so. The mayor of Chicago has been like, yo, shut the F up, stay out of here, and why don't y'all focus on these gun loopholes and the trafficking of these guns from neighboring states into Chicago. You knowing intimately the inner workings of the streets of Chicago, what can you impart wisdom-wise on us about what's going on with the youth in Chicago in the streets? What's the truth?
Man, the real truth is that it's 50 years of starving, 60 years of starving, and the resources haven't existed. The things that impact violence positively are simple. It's education, healthcare, stable, affordable housing. And all of these things have been thrown aside in favor of policing and incarceration. And Chicago is no different from hoods across America. Chicago is
Same
just a
thing in New York, same
microcosm.
thing in Philly, same thing in LA, same thing in Oakland, same thing
It's
in
just
Atlanta.
concentrated.
Right.
It's an extreme version and extremely visible, specifically because of the music that's come. But it's just a concentrated version of what's going on in every hood in America, and that's that the people aren't being taken care of because the people aren't cared for. The people aren't representative of the people in power. So the people in power don't look at us in Chicago and look at the kids dying in Chicago like, oh, we got to take care of our own. Our shorties are dying. It's those shorties are dying. Those black kids are dying, and then they give us 40% of our budget in Chicago goes to the police. But the statistics show that it's not policing that actually reduces crime. It's the things I say. Early childhood education will reduce the chance that a kid is arrested by the age of 18 by 70%. But who can afford preschool? That's a specific demographic that doesn't really reach the hood. So you're going to go to your auntie house, to your grandma's house. But the proof is that having access to early childhood education will plummet your chances of ending up behind bars. But the money's going to the police. You know what I mean? And then we talk to the mayor and we like, what's up with defunding the police? And that's all we've been speaking about, because when you defund the police, then you open up some space for us to actually put enough money into education, for us to actually put money into employment opportunities. Because when you look at it, the rates of violence and crime, man, that directly correlates to unemployment. When you compare communities of different races based on similar unemployment rates, the crime and the violence is almost identical.
Right.
So the opportunities don't exist. And we tell the mayor, we want to defund the police so that we can put the money into the places that will actually help to change this city. But when we say that, then it's like, oh, well, we'll find the money in other places. Like, no, the police ain't doing shit except being brutal. We see it everywhere. They're not capable of anything else.
Do you think that the name defund the police is a service or a disservice to what you're actually talking about doing from a practical standpoint?
I think that people play stupid and they act like they can't grasp a simple concept because the name, is extreme. But what we're talking about doing is defunding the police. We're talking about taking funding from the police and putting it into the community. That doesn't mean that the police have to receive $0. I mean, if it was up to me, they would, but
would you really want no police at all?
I would like alternatives to police. I think that alternative first responders are what we need. It's like you look at so many of these situations, like Elijah McClain, you look at situations where people are having mental health episodes and the police are called, but the police aren't trained to deal with those, and the police are racist, so they kill them. You look at situations of domestic violence where the police just come and kill everybody. You look at traffic stops where the police just kill them. All these things that don't need to be handled by police. So I'm advocating for abolition of police. I think that disbanding, defunding, abolition of police is where my head is at. And I don't have every answer on what all of the alternatives would be, but I think that we got to be able to aim high. You know what I'm saying? Because we realize that police are not working for us.
It is interesting that it's set up that way, though, where like you have this violence-based force that's supposed to be the all-encompassing helpers, right? They're supposed to get the cat out of the tree. They're also supposed to shoot the criminal who's dangerous and has a gun, right? That is such a vastly different.
Get the homeless guy out of your hallway.
Which, by the way, is a great in-between, right? Because it's not dealing with the cat, and it's also not needing to shoot someone. It's something in the middle. And to your point, so many of those jobs would be accomplished in a better way by trained social workers who know how to deal with people. And that way, you could then have the violent police part be a specialized small force that get called by the social workers when that is needed, as opposed to the first layer you're going to is the people with the guns.
Exactly. You know, there's a group in Oregon.
Go ahead.
There's a group in Oregon. I don't remember their name, but they are doing exactly what we're talking about. They're like an alternative first responder group. They're not armed. And, you know, they are fielding like 20% of the calls that happen now. And, you know, only in a handful of cases in the last year did they even have to defer to the armed police. You know, it's possible, but we got to peep game that the FOP and the unions, these are big business organizations with a lot of power and a lot of weight, and they lobby that. And this is about a lot more and completely other set of criterion than public safety.
Well, and it also helps fund the prison pipeline and these other institutions that are money-making institutions. I would like to say for people watching this conversation, because it is very frustrating for me, and Rosenberg and I, and on the show, we've debated the whole term defund the police. It's an activist phrase. It is supposed to create a level of discomfort not only amongst police but also amongst society, so people start to pay attention. It's up to elected officials and people who are supposed professionals to take this term, defund the police, or any sort of activist energy and translate it into policy change if they want policy change. And that's the purpose of these people who are voted into office, is so that they can take what the community is feeling and saying and translate it into actionable items, right, that create the change that the voter wants, right? So someone like a Vic Mensa, who is talking about disbanding and these other things, like many other activists, and they've crossed some of these conversations in a city like Minneapolis, it's up to the mayor and the city council to say, okay, what does that actually look like? And to put an actual plan in place. Because often when these conversations happen and you're just talking to an activist or a demonstrator, and you don't have politicians and these people who actually write laws at the table, what ends up happening is somebody like Vic Mensa, the next question somebody asks you, Vic, they go, okay, so what's the solution? And Vic goes, well, I don't have a solution. They go, see, you don't even know what you want. And the reason I use this as a point in this conversation for people to learn is because I just saw the president do the same thing yesterday when he was talking about health care, and George Stephanopoulos goes, okay, so what's the plan? And he goes, well, we have one, but he couldn't articulate the plan. Mm-hmm. But he's the person with the current job. The problem is the people that hold these jobs too often, they're not actually trying to find solutions to cross this line. They're actually just allowing demonstrators and activists who are people in the community who have enough time and energy and desire to actually want to try to spark change. They're trying to pin it on those people to actually find the solution. The solution is supposed to be found by people with the jobs to write policies and laws. But the problem in the past is they haven't been forced into a position where if they want to keep that job as an elected official, They have to provide the solution. I think we're getting to a point in society where the voter, the young voter specifically, is going, okay, boom, I voted for you. All right, what's happening? Oh, you didn't get the progress that you needed or that we expected from you? All right, we're giving somebody else the job.
Facts. I mean, in terms of defunding, abolition, someone that I respect had given me an ill perspective on abolition, and just that abolition, prison abolition doesn't just mean that tomorrow all the prisons disappear, but if we can strike down certain pillars of the structure of mass incarceration, if we can strike down all 3 strikes laws, if we can strike down drug laws, you know what I'm saying, then we're making steps towards abolition. So I think even with defunding the police, what people need to recognize that we do have solutions. First of all, that one of the primary solutions is alternative first responders, as we spoke about, but also that defund the police is not all or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Defund the police is what certain cities, I believe New York City being one of them, have taken a certain amount from the police budget and said that this is going to be invested in community. You know what I mean? And that is defunding the police in action. Is it enough? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? But it is what we mean when we say defund the police.
Well, and a step further is here in New York City. So that happened. Voters wanted that. City council voted for that. We have a little bit more transparency. Now there was a statute which blocked the public from seeing the crimes and the issues that police officers were having. Now that's visible. We can see these things when they get complaints and who has what complaints. Police did not want us to see that. But guess what the police union decided they wanted to do with their endorsement of a president, which they've never done before in history. They decided, that's right, the NYPD decided that it was a good time that they would endorse Donald Trump.
Law and order, man.
They've never endorsed a president before, ever. But that's
let's not act like they wasn't already. They was
no.
Trump.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But keep that to yourself. You work for the city. You work for the taxpayers.
Right.
Whatever you do in your private time, that's your business. But the fact that you're emboldened enough and confident enough when the city is clear, when New York City clearly is not endorsing that's what you want to do as a police force, as a police union. That means
I think it's funny.
You have no regard. You don't care, and you realize you're untouchable.
Look at how they moved with Pantaleo. That's what they own. I think it's funny when I see the police. There was a rally that was held recently, or a press conference, where a police chief somewhere was like, everybody wants to blame us. They want to blame us. They want to make us feel bad for being cops. They want to act. And his whole speech was cut, juxtaposed with like all the most famous images of the police beating people up during all the protests recently. Yeah. Like when they pushed the old man on the ground. Yep. They want to shame us, is what he was saying. I was like, you should be ashamed. Like, you're doing shameful shit.
No, that was a dude. That was the head of the union here, I think. I think you're talking about.
That was it.
Yeah, and conveniently, his last name is Lynch.
They want to shame us. Yeah, that white supremacy is deep, man. It's deep, and it's in their blood. It's like it's ingrained in these people. You know what I'm saying? And just thinking about lynching and thinking about the imagery that we have of 500, sometimes 10,000 people just watching, smiling, going to a picnic to watch a lynching. Some of those kids are still alive and have grown into
I think about that all the time.
Officers, into the fathers of these officers. These families are like literally built on a virulent strain of white supremacy, and they were showed from a young age that this is the way things are supposed to be, and they're just holding on for dear life as the world changes around them.
Are you happy with the level of involvement that hip hop has with the conversation happening in the world, or do you think it needs to be better and more aggressive?
I always think it needs to be more aggressive, but I do think that as it stands, we're in a good place, and that hip hop is taking up more of the space that it needs to, as far as being a change agent, because you know we recognize that that's where hip hop comes from. You know what I mean? That hip hop's earliest moments were shining a light on the inequities that people were experiencing and are still experiencing. You know what I mean? All the way from like Grandmaster Flash, The Message, to Public Enemy and NWA. You know, now I was having this conversation with Lena Waithe the other day. Um, I do feel like other areas of culture and art, film specifically, are ahead of us in hip hop right now. You know, in terms of the the projects that are met with the most commercial success, um, recently have often been like Queen and Slim and Moonlight, and like progressive, real, like really
Yeah.
progressive content,
And those
meaningful.
projects are celebrated by the community. Like we're not, giving
Exactly.
accolades to the artists that
I mean,
are.
even Black Panther was the biggest commercial
That
success,
that
and
that
look what it
that's
stood for.
that's what I'm saying. And film is ahead of us in hip hop right now, because still, if you go on most hip hop radio stations and listen to the bulk of music, that hip hop music that comes out that is popular and commercially successful, it's still kind of regurgitating the same misogynistic tropes, and the same shallow violence and materialism. It's like hip hop on a commercially viable level is not doing what film is doing yet. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that we're headed there. You know what I mean? And these things go in cycles, and it's like invariably people got to get tired of what they're being force fed right now, because it's not aging well. And listening back to it in 10 years, it's like most of this ain't really gonna ring the same way. You know what I mean? But
I mean,
yeah,
historically speaking, on hip hop radio too, you know, living it, there's always been an inner struggle in the hallways of what the DJs want to put forward versus what is, considered successful. You know what I mean? Like, forever. Like, even when Chuck D
right.
was like, radio, suckers never play me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and we loved Fight the Power at the time, but it wasn't like it was on, every radio station in the nation all day long. You know what I mean? It happened at certain times and in certain places, right? Even Ice Cube's first solo album. I mean, I could go on and on. A lot of the records that get commercial success are about frivolous shenanigans, you know what I mean? And or
Right.
sex and misogyny, which I think is indicative of a larger societal sickness that hip hop is just a reflection of, and a lot of times chasing the money goes in that direction. But we have a lot of work to do there, and it'll be a continual fight too. It'll be a continual fight.
But to your point, Vic, about film, because Ebro's right. But if you think about it, well, we were always told when when I was sitting there, be like, why are we playing Black Star? And I was getting the feedback of like, that's not what the people want to hear. To your point, film, which is something that, unlike radio, which is free, and with radio, you're trying to put out honey and get the bees to come, right? With film, people are choosing. They're spending their money on the product they want, and they are showing us that they like to see some positive, smart stuff. And so I wonder with radio if anyone will ever be willing to take that risk to let that honey be something different and really see if maybe people would gravitate towards it. But it won't happen with one song. You know what I'm saying? That this is something that would have to happen over time with a lot of people on board being interested in doing it.
Yeah, as I think about it too, I feel like film is like, in a way, it's a pretty, it's like an elitist medium, it's such a large scale and it requires such immense funding to do things that it's like hip hop is, to Ebro's point, it's a far more dialed in pulse of of the people. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't take $1 million to make a hit.
Nor
You
does
know
it
what I
take $1
mean?
million to hear the hit. I mean, going to the movies is
For
expensive.
sure.
Hearing a song's
For
free.
sure. It's like people is making hits in, Chief keeping them in Young Chop's basement. You know what I mean? With one broken speaker. So it's like you really hearing where the people are at. And the person that said this best was Mos Def. You know what I mean? When he was like, people always ask me about the state of hip hop. How's hip hop like it's some giant living in the hills or some, you know? And hip hop is just a reflection of the people. If the people are all right, then hip hop gonna be all right. If the people are doing bad, then hip hop gonna be doing bad. And I do think that hip hop is reflective of, like, you know, largely where black people are at. It's not the full scope, or popular hip hop is not the mainstream hip hop is not the full scope, but
Nah.
it does reflect that where the mindset is at. And I think that's why I say I feel like it's gonna start shifting, because the consciousness seems
It's
to
shifting.
be
Yep.
turning
Well, look,
over.
even when you look at, you've always been speaking, and you and Chance have come from Chicago, but let's just take Chicago, right, and look at G Herbo's last release, Polo G's last release, and even what Dirk is saying on records. When you go into these albums, G Herbo's last release, he was talking about post traumatic stress disorder, and was talking about his emotions and what he's dealing with in the hood. Polo G's album, he talking about overcoming hood obstacles and getting to a better place, and you know what I mean. Like, there's some hopeful, thoughtfulness in these records, even coming out of the city from them dudes that, a lot of times their catalog or their style of rhyming and hip hop has been, synonymous with just short-sightedness and violence, but they're going a little bit farther than that. So I do think what you're saying is correct, in that people are taking a more, and young artists specifically are taking a more thoughtful approach.
Word up.
And they're
even with
trying
the
to
Lil
dig
Baby
in there.
single. When was the last time someone in Lil Baby's place in the game put out a single that's successful? His records get successful.
Yeah, the bigger picture.
The bigger picture is a hit that you hear on radio across the country, and it's about something. Now, it's just one song. But to your point, Vic, it does show that people are changing a bit, and there are a lot of talented artists right now. Love Roddy Ricch, love the Baby. Musically, I really enjoy what they do. But I do feel that even artists like that are going to have to, as time goes on, sort of mend to where we're at socially, and start delivering those messages too. Because right now it feels kind of crazy to just randomly hear a song that's about the same BS. Like Gucci, Versace, Chicks in a Club sounds a little crazy right now, given where people are at.
Word.
Now, Vic, in Chicago, and you talking about this V tape, which brings you back to center at home and in touch with, what's going on in Chicago. How is the current mayor doing? And how, in general, is Chicago handling the current state of things? Like, when you really get down on the neighborhood level, what's going good? What's not going so well?
That's okay. It's disappointing that Chicago is the largest metropolitan area to not see real substantial change from these moments of uprising. And it would appear that the mayor has no smoke for the police department, and obviously the police are honestly not the root of this issue, but they have been shown time and time again to be the enforcers of this issue. White supremacy is at the and really capitalism are and racialized capitalism are at the source of this. And as I was saying earlier, what we need is investment in the communities, and uh, and I think that it would make sense for that to be coming from the police budget. We haven't seen any of that from the mayor yet. Um, we don't really, we can't really call it who her constituency is, who she's serving. I'm so I'm not happy with her performance thus far. I don't think that it's too late, but I'm not feeling it. Um, Now in the city, things are dope. There's a lot of young kids that have just kind of stepped into this activism role when everything popped off earlier in the summer. And some of my young guys that, got to organizing marches and boycotts and fundraising, and they fresh out of high school. So I think that there's been a lot of momentum and movement, but on behalf of the people in the right direction. And now it's just, kind of just seeing how we can maximize it and getting the people empowered to play along and actually do their job a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Musically, will we ever see a Vic Mensa Chance collab? Do you guys talk? Have you guys communicated recently?
Yeah, actually. I mean, I think I saw him yesterday, or the day before. Yeah, we working on something super special, actually. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? So there's a really special joint that I believe y'all will see soon. You know what I mean? We kind of all been clicked up. You know what I'm saying? Like it was 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And kind of in the time, things have been up, they've been down. But heads fell out, got cool. But right now we all been linked up. You know what I mean? Which is, it just feels good for me. I know it feels good for everybody because it's like we really are our family. You know what I'm saying? And we go back before any rap shit for real. You know what I'm saying? We were just talking about, like, remembering the first time that a lot of the guys met Chance, when there was some issues that was happening at his school. Um, he went to school downtown. He was like kind of alone. Maybe one of the guys was at school with him. He was having some issues down there, and them guys didn't really know what time it was. So we came from our school, Whitney Young, and also got some of the guys from the South Side to come up, and we just popped up outside the school 25 deep. Some people got suits on from like programs, popped up outside the school 25 deep, like, oh yeah, what's happening? You know what I mean? And got busy. And that's sophomore year of high school. You know what I'm saying? So you talk about a lot of history. You know what I'm saying?
So and I guess with that, I want to get in this No More Teardrops record that you released too, that I've been talking a lot about, which is a phenomenal record. I want to play something out. Now, what is it, the No More Teardrops record, where you talk about basically what's going on in society, police brutality? What is that from?
Yeah, so I went to Baton Rouge 4 years ago when Alton Sterling was killed. Me and Malik Youssef, we went down there and we spent some time at the gas station Stop and Shop where the police killed him. And when we were there was a brass band that came playing through the street, kind of like celebration of life, how they do in Louisiana. It's similar to how they do in Ghana, where I'm from. You know what I mean? It's like they celebrate life in death. And they were singing this song, you know what I mean? Playing the horns, beating the drums, and singing that song, and I recorded it on my phone and made the beat out of that.
That's dope. That's super dope. Vic, it's always great to see you, bro. Thank you for your time. I want to play that. And then what should we play off the V-tape? What's the fan favorite off of there? I like the joint with Snow Allegra, and I also like I think it's Rebirth. Yeah, with BJ Chicago Kid.
Man,
What's your joint?
the records people probably gravitating to the most off the V tape. Um, Dirt on My Name, Too Honest with St. John, and Machiavelli. Those are probably the ones that people are gravitating
Now
towards
you
the most.
dropping
And the
a
intro.
you dropping a Machiavelli video or something, a mini movie or something?
Yeah, so we did a music video for it, but it's also kind of weaves into a short film that has a few different pieces. Um, and that comes out today.
I like that. I like that. I noticed on the album you spelled it like the proper original Machiavelli. But then when we talked about it, because I was like, oh, I wonder if there's a point to that. But now you're talking about it, you go straight back to Machiavelli.
But yeah, I mean, that's not
Tupac,
how
baby.
you say. Is that Machiavelli? Machiavelli.
I have no idea. I was always confused because I only know about Machiavelli because of Tupac. So then,
I mean, that's how.
Right.
Then we went and read the.
so then,
the
like
Wikipedia.
what's it called? Two Princes or whatever the Machiavelli story was.
Prince.
The
Yeah,
Prince.
The Prince.
Yeah, the Prince. By the way, I think I just confused it with the song by Spin Doctors or some '90s alt rock band instead. But either way, I went back and looked, and so when I noticed you spelled it the original way, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's a thing there.
Machiavelli. Well, it was just kind of the whole staging your own death, which is like what Pac picked up from Machiavelli, and since the whole theme of the album is rebirth, it seemed fitting for me because it was like coming back from the dead.
Now, Vic, you've talked about your drug addiction and drugs in your past and dealing with depression and just navigating all of those things. The clarity that you have today. Let's play this Machiavelli. Let's play this joint. But for those people out there, young people and even older that maybe are dealing with addictions and depression, you did a lot of work. You did not only working out in the gym type work, but you did the mental work of getting a therapist too. Was it a mix of all the things that got you to the space of clarity that you are today, and how much of your clarity is tied to having a purpose right now? Because as you fight for not only your city, but fight to keep the energy and the conversation going around social justice, police brutality, and all these things, is that also helping you channel your energy into a useful place?
I think right now is a tough time for so many people for so many reasons. People are out of work. People are being assaulted physically and like visually, and with the sounds of brutality and videos constantly, and that's impacting people's sometimes already fragile mental health. For me, I had to learn that as somebody who's been dealing with these things, depression, anxiety, etc., since I was 5 years old, that I got to take certain steps to take care of myself, to be healthy. You know what I mean? And that is speaking to my therapist and meditating and not doing drugs. You know what I mean? Because I had a thought last night, right when I finished meditating, and I was going to sleep. I'm walking to my bed, and I hit my foot. I didn't turn the light on. And as I came back through the room, I turned the light on, and I just had a thought. I was like, when walking in the dark, turn on the light so you don't hurt yourself. You know what I'm saying? I feel like taking care of yourself oftentimes, that could be turning on the light, because this journey can feel like walking in the dark a lot of the time because people feel alone. I mean, these are just parts of the human condition, especially right now, though, when we're faced with being oppressed and, being second-class citizens. You can feel like you're in the dark, but you got to do certain things to turn that light on within yourself.
That's dope, man. Thank you for that. And keep going, man. We appreciate you.
I appreciate y'all, man. It's love.
Go get
Holla,
that
Vic.
V-tape, Vic Mensa. There's going to be some follow-ups to this, man. Take care, bro.
Later, man.
All right, my
Peace.
guys.
Peace.